how many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. Here I am, folks. I forgot where I moved the button around on this thing. I tried to reorganize some stuff and it never fails. I forget where I move these buttons. So here we are. Welcome to The Experts on Facebook, Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And there's actually a lot in the news today to talk about. Same headlines, but there's a lot that you can see behind the headlines. As you know, that's what this show is all about helping you understand the reality of what the real story is and what we're actually looking at in the news. MSNBC and CNN, they are racing to the bottom. It's unbelievable, the nonsense that you see. It keeps getting worse. I didn't think it could get worse. But it has literally gotten, I mean, it's tremendously bad. So we're going to discuss that. And then also, I've been saying for over several years that they should be charging these mayors with obstruction and other crimes for basically letting these illegals into their cities and calling their cities sanctuary city. I think the incoming governor of New Jersey should be already charged. We'll talk about that. Let's do the warning order. So, great to be here. Last night, last night's broadcast for those on Facebook got chopped in half again. Viral hog. Don't even get me started on these bullies on the internet. How they, I guess, I don't know how they do this, folks, but I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Anyway, it got interrupted, and so I came up again, but on Twitter and YouTube, it didn't get interrupted, so the actual thing goes all the way through. So tonight, I'm going to be very careful that the video that I'm pulling down tonight comes directly off of the off of TV, and it is going to be hopefully, I think it's open to the entire open airwaves. So I don't think that this is going to be something that Viral Hog can claim ownership of. So we'll see. Usually the news stuff doesn't get in the way. But one thing I want to talk about before we get to MSNBC and CNN and their race to the bottom, I want to talk about the fact that Japan had a exact same thing several days after Hawaii and their alert that an incoming missile was inbound, that a nuclear missile was coming there, and caused all the panic. Japan had a false alarm as well. So I have to ask the question here, folks. Are there hackers that are doing that? I know what we're being told, that somebody in Hawaii didn't push the button. We're not given an explanation yet about Japan, but I find it very interesting that those are two of the targets for North Korea, and now they both have had these issues. The big difference, though, comes in that Japan sent out another message within 5 minutes of the false message going out. And from my understanding, it took over 30 minutes in Hawaii. So for 30 minutes, they were under the illusion that there was an incoming missile. And one individual actually had a heart attack after saying his last goodbyes and died. So I'm starting to wonder if there's not something bigger to this story, if hackers didn't get a hold of something and they were able to do this. I don't know. But it really comes down, here's the thing. I was on Breitbart News this morning on SiriusXM Patriot Channel, where I host. I'm actually going to be hosting for Wilcow this Thursday from 12 to 3. I may be hosting Friday, but I don't know yet. I haven't been told that. But definitely Thursday. And but I was on Breitbart News this morning, and we discussed this Hawaii incident. And one thing I'm actually, transparency with me, and I'll try to play myself off as something that I'm not. When they ask me what people should do, I really don't know what people should do in the circumstance where there's a potential incoming missile. I don't know. After watching all the stuff from the Cold War and looking online, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot that people are doing to forward think, how do we save millions and millions of people? They're not doing that. You're pretty much, if an incoming missile is on the way, like say to New York City, they say that, in a tall building, if you can get as low as possible underground, that's the safest place. If not, it's not the bottom of the building, it's the middle of the building and as close to the interior as you can get. Interesting. Didn't know that. Is that really going to help in a high-yield nuclear weapon striking a city, or in the case of Hawaii? I don't know. Then there's like several weeks before you can drink water or eat the food that's outside. They say you can buy these filters that does reverse something or another. I'm just not an expert in this field, but it's interesting because as I started looking into it, I think there's a limited amount of stuff that you can do, and I think that potentially is why they haven't ever really said a whole lot of stuff about these things happening. So, but the standard operating procedure for how they corrected it in Japan was by far much better and much quicker than the way they did it here in the United States. So that was very interesting. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that. I think we should continue to monitor this stuff, and we'll know here pretty soon if there is some kind of a virus going around, or if there's hackers that are hacking into these databases where the warning systems are kicked off because something is just a little odd. So if something happens again, I think we're going to know. Look, could it have happened twice within like a couple of days in two different locations that these accidents were made? I guess it's possible, but if it happens a third time, I'm going to say no, it's not a mistake. I mean, I still have my doubts about Hawaii, seeing as how they have these activist judges out there, that Obama's had a lot of different people who are supporters of his in a radical sense. So I don't know. Who knows the reality of this? We don't really get the stories that we need to get anymore. We don't get the information for these stories. If you haven't shared this on Facebook, share it right now. Everybody should share it. 90 people on there. Everybody should share it. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. And on YouTube, I don't know what we do, as always. So, let's see. 20 people. The most loyal people in the world over there on YouTube. Sometimes I wonder if we should all just jump over to YouTube, but YouTube is just as corrupt as the rest of them. And if you didn't get to watch yesterday's show, you can go to YouTube and you can see when I talked about the reality of Twitter and Facebook and Google, and how they are, in the phone companies and the cable companies, they have all the information that everybody panicked about the United States government having. They have it. Nobody's even concerned with this, that they have this information. In fact, they have more access than the government ever had. I mean, in order to get access to this stuff, the government always had to get a subpoena. So, interesting. Okay. Enough about that. Let's go to, we're going to go to the A block. And before I get started on that, what I want to talk about here is that, look, as I often say, this show, it was created not just to bring experts in certain fields on, but to help you better understand the reality of the narrative of the news and what's going on behind and why they're saying the things that they say. I think today was probably one of the best days I've ever seen for examples of this. I'm not going to show the video of this just because I don't want to give him any more recognition than I have to. But Jim Acosta, you know, the knucklehead who, let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to find my lower third. Where is that thing? There it is. Jim Acosta in the White House, in the Oval Office, starts pressing President Trump again about allegations of being a racist, and Trump finally had enough with it and told him to get out. Now, he's not asking those questions because he's trying to find the truth. Jim Acosta knows this is a narrative. He knows that because he's part of the spreading of the narrative. See, he knows all this stuff. But when I turned on CNN and MSNBC to watch just a couple hours of I just leave it on the background while I'm searching on the internet for different stuff, and I pulled the best two. I went back, and it's crude recordings. I recorded it with my phone, but it's unbelievable what you're going to see. And as I point these different things out, you're going to be amazed at the ridiculousness of what they're saying and how it is literally pure lies while they call other people liars. It's pure spin while they say other people are spinning things. And you'll see it. I'm trying to debate which one we want to start off with. Let's start off with MSNBC. The guy's name's Ari. I don't remember his last name. But MSNBC, where he's interviewing a guy about Facebook and about the fact that Facebook has had problems with their news feeds and how the Russians came in and did supposedly fake news and this and that. Let's start off with that. And let me move it over here. All right. The lighting isn't good or anything, but you're going to be able to hear the sound as I go through this. Let's see here. All right.
But that sounds fatalistic. I want to take your point and play a little bit more Zuckerberg, where he seems to think that there's news out there, and that's something they just have to live with. And
now he's going to play a soundbite from Mark Zuckerberg from 2016. And the thing is, when Mark Zuckerberg is talking, he's talking about how ridiculous, kind of tell you the truth, but how there's news out there, and it's very important for the people that work at Facebook. They take it very seriously, that they police their news. Basically, you'll hear that. That is not the story, the thing that I'm trying to get at, but it's interesting. Now let's listen.
Talk about why that's problematic. Here's Zuckerberg.
We build technology, but we feel responsible for how it's used. We don't write the news that people read on the platform, but at the same time, we also know that we do a lot more than just distribute news. This is just something that I am proud that people in this company take this so seriously.
He's very proud of his company. Now, here's where the real story comes. Listen to what this guy, Ari, has to say about that.
He says there, we don't write the news. That skips the whole issue. The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods, and trick people into thinking it was news. When BuzzFeed reports that one of the most shared items was the Pope endorsing Trump, which didn't happen, a lie, that shouldn't be on a platform as news if they care at all about what news is. Issue is that news.
So I want you to listen to this one more time. It should have already hit you, but I want you to listen to what he is saying when he's describing the danger of fake news. And then I'll tell you why, and I'll play it one more time.
That skips the whole issue. The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods, and trick people into thinking it was news. When BuzzFeed reports that one of the most shared items was the Pope endorsing Trump, which didn't happen, a lie, that shouldn't be on a platform as news if they care at all about what news is. And the problem.
Now, I apologize again because the lighting is off on this. And I'm not going to take the time to fix it because it's really the sound bite that we're concerned here with. Now, I'm going to break this up bit by bit. Now, you've heard it twice. You should understand what I'm going for on this.
He says there, we don't write the news. That skips the whole issue.
He said that we don't write the news. That's what Mark Zuckerberg was saying.
The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods.
So he's saying that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods, right? So the reality is they've already looked at this. What the Russians did with Facebook amounted to, it was virtually no hits whatsoever. It didn't make a difference at all, a dent in the elections. However, if you look at the lies that are spewed daily and have been spewed daily in an increasingly magnified way by CNN and MSNBC primarily, there's lies all over the place. I would say even Fox News lies, and really the ones that are the most truthful is Newsmax and OAN. They pretty much report the news and they have opinion, but they're not salacious in their opinions. Now, I will tell you, and I know that there's liberals out there going to think that I'm siding with Fox News. I have no love affair with Fox News. I used to be on Fox News, but I was also a CNN contributor for a while. The reality is with Fox News, you do get more truthful news, reporting of the news. I think more fair and balanced reporting of the news than you do at CNN and MSNBC. Because they do give two sides of the story when needed, and then they report the news in a bit more of a neutral way. But I will fault them even themselves for jumping on, for instance, the S-hole bandwagon with Trump, saying that this is the truth, that is the truth, when nobody was there. They weren't there. None of these reporters or anybody were there. So getting back to what this guy is saying here is that he's saying that it's important because the Russians were telling lies and creating falsehoods, when in reality, the most destruction that we have had to our own national security and to truth when it comes to people voting and all these other things are these people. The media, MSNBC and CNN are the biggest hitters. You got the Washington Post, you got the New York Times, you got, I mean, on and on and on with these different companies. BuzzFeed, I would even throw Snopes in there, because even though Snopes isn't reporting news, quite often the stuff that they're saying is legitimate or not legitimate depends on the what way it leans, left or right. So let's listen to the next part of this, and he goes even deeper in this hole.
Trick people into thinking it was news. When BuzzFeed reports...
So tricking people as though it was news. Now that sounds like something that's done on a daily basis by the mainstream media, does it not? It's as if he is subconsciously omitting or telling everybody, confessing, that's the word I'm looking for, confessing his own sins and the sins of the network and the other networks around him. It's as if he is confessing these sins.
The most shared items was the Pope endorsing Trump, which didn't happen, a lie.
Right.
That shouldn't be on a platform as news if they care at all about what news is.
Okay, so he says that, right? He says that this lie about the Pope should not exist, should not have existed. I don't know what lie he's talking about, but he's saying it was a lie, and it should not appear anywhere around the news if they are saying they are the news. Now, again, this is like confessional, like I guess this is what it's like to be a priest, and this guy's telling you his sins, because this is the news on a daily basis. Even what he is saying is a lie in the way that he refers to President Trump. And it happens every day, but it's almost mind-boggling in the way that it's overwhelming. You turn the news on, you're going to see lies. You look online, you're going to see lies. You pick up a newspaper, there's going to be lies. They don't have credible sources. They have unnamed sources that they won't name. They'll have one person like Dick Durbin come out and say this is the truth. His political backers will say, oh yeah, that was true. Other people say, no, I never heard that. And the news will run with whatever side that they lean towards as truth. When they weren't there, there's no recordings, they don't have any proof of the fact, they'll run with that as truth. So it's very interesting when you look at this. It's very aggravating. It's very, once you see it though, it's easy to start seeing this more and more and more. Now that's it for this. If you want to hear it one more time, I'm going to play it one more time. Let's see here. Because I really wanted to dig into you.
He says there, we don't write the news. That skips the whole issue. The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods.
They would be considered the others.
Trick people into thinking it was news. When BuzzFeed reports that one of the most shared items was the Pope endorsing Trump, which didn't happen, a lie.
Lies, falsehoods, to trick people into believing it was the truth. That is what the mainstream media does every single day.
Shouldn't be on a platform as news if they care at all about what news is. And the problem.
Yeah. If they cared at all about what news is. Well, they don't care. They don't care about what news is. These are people this is a business. It's also a political scam is what's happening here. Now let's listen to CNN. This one's actually a bit longer. This was Erin Burnett, not even that long ago. This was at 7 o'clock. And I've been on Erin Burnett's show. She's a nice enough person, but I've got to tell you, she's about as salacious as they come in the stuff that spews out of her mouth. And I had a little discussion with Erin Burnett once after she went to Belgium to interview the brother of one of the attackers, the main attackers, the guy that was on a run after a while after the Paris shootings. And she went into Belgium and she interviewed this guy. So I was sitting here watching this interview thinking to myself, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. You're interviewing somebody who most likely had firsthand knowledge that this attack was going to happen. You're in their house in an area where terrorists exist. The largest number of terrorists outside of, and I say terrorists, I should say jihadists, fundamental Islamic jihadists, people that are dead set on jihad outside of the Middle East, is in Belgium and France. And she goes into that location, it's pretty much a no-go zone, sits down, interviews this guy as though assuming that he knew nothing. And I asked her face to face, we're sitting there at a commercial break, and I said, I was watching that, and just the hair on the back of my neck was standing up while I was watching you there, thinking to myself, does she realize the environment and the threat that she is under while she sits there? And she looked at me and she said, do you really think so? You think I was under that much threat? I was shocked, because there's every once in a while in media, I meet somebody, they're typically nice. I'm not going to say anything bad about their personalities, but I'm shocked at the lack of knowledge they have on reality, and the fact that people want to kill them, and the fact that people are bad, and the fact that inner city, like in this country, the inner city is the way it is in a large part because people have lived that way for generations, and they don't do anything to get out of it because politicians are bad and they don't do anything to help people get out of it. Poverty in general is believe it or not, it's an addictive thing, because what people do is they stop trying. They stop trying and they get addicted to not trying, and they get addicted to the woe is me. I'm just here and the man brings me down. There's no opportunity, when in fact there is opportunity if you go out and make it. And the cities do the same things. We can't do everything to help these people out. Yada, whatever they do. Let's put them on welfare. Let's give them public housing. That does nothing to help them get out of poverty. It actually cements their dependency. So It's amazing to me when I was talking to her and how it reflects and reminds me when I look around society and in the media, how many people are in positions of prominence, how many people are in positions, they have a national stage where they could say and share the truth, but they have no clue about reality. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to bite on it as we go through and explain some stuff. Hopefully you'll now be able to see this quite a bit, and you'll see the reality of how shocking it is when Erin Burnett says the things that she says. I'm torn between thinking that she is not understanding the reality of what's going on, or CNN's just gotten to the point where they just make stuff up as they go along. All right, let's play this.
Good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, how stupid do you think we are? Trump's allies in Washington are covering for him, and they shouldn't get away with it. The president called African...
So Trump's allies are covering for him, and they shouldn't get away from it. What do you think Dick Durbin and the rest of these people, and you yourself, Erin Burnett, maybe I should change this a little bit. Let's see here. I think I can do it here. She herself is covering for the Democratic Party. I mean, that's what's happening here, folks, is that didn't help much. That's not helping much. Let's see here. That's not helping. I look like I got a sunburn. And that's not helping. All right. Let me do this. I just want to do this so you can at least see. I don't want it to be that bad a TV. If I can remember how to do it. I knew I was going to do that. Stand by. All right, there we go. And bingo. At least you can see her face now. Okay. So there you go. So let's go on with it. So she is, so let's start over with this. And basically, what she is saying.
Trump's allies in Washington are covering for him, and they shouldn't get away with it. president called African countries. Allies are out front tonight. How stupid do you think we are? Trump's allies in Washington are covering for him, and they shouldn't get away with it. The president called African countries S-hole countries, and it was racist. And
so she knows none of this, okay? She's saying that his allies are covering for him. They shouldn't get away with it. Yet this happens daily in politics. But CNN is going to pick this out. Erin Burnett is going to pick this out as though this in and of itself is credible truth, as though this is something that happens rarely, if ever. And the fact is, she is doing it in the opposite direction as she speaks, as it comes out of her mouth.
Trump's allies are trying to pull a fast one on the American people.
They're politicians. What do you think they're going to do? And the fact is, in the entire time she's talking, it's as if she knows for a fact that there is proof somewhere that they know exactly what he said in that room. And they don't. They don't know. It's really a he said, she said. When it comes to politicians, 3/4 of stuff that comes out of their mouth are lies. The other stuff they're just telling you so you'll buy whatever they're selling.
Today, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, who was in that heated meeting on immigration with President Trump and lawmakers, was grilled on Capitol Hill about what exactly the president said. And she conveniently couldn't remember.
You said it. Now, we could play any number of high-level meetings that they have in front of the committees in Congress and the Senate, and we could show you where Loretta Lynch and all these other people from the Obama administration all took the Fifth Amendment or just didn't remember. So this is no news right here, is what you're seeing. This woman is in line for a cabinet position. Why? First off, if Trump did say this, why would she ever throw him under the bus, first of all? And if he did say, which we still have, I mean, we've covered this pretty much, but if he did say something is a crap hole, the fact is, as we talked about this week over and over ad nauseum, most of the places in Central South America have declined so far that they are either third world countries or they border a third world country. And they're almost inhospitable. Their governments have failed. They have failed governments, and the narcos are thriving there, which is another reason why our immigration should be bolstered. But let's listen to this. And this is Dick Durbin that's interviewing her. Go figure. The main liar in this whole thing.
Is that the president used strong language? What was that strong language?
Let's see. Strong language. There was. Apologies. I don't remember specific word.
Okay.
Okay. So Erin Burnett's like, okay, I know the truth. I was there. Well, you weren't there, Erin. You were not there. So the little snarky look you have on your face is all based on hearsay. I mean, in a court of law, none of this stuff would stand up. None of these people understand anything about reality, I'm starting to assume, or they're just so comfortable with believing something before it's proven, as long as it fits their narrative.
If we're to take the secretary at her word, and she says she doesn't remember, quote, strong language used by the president of the United States, then surely she doesn't remember specific words by others in the room, right?
I hear Senator Graham use profanity.
I did hear tough language from Senator Graham, yes, sir.
What did he say?
He used tough language.
Do you recall that the strong language he used repeated exactly what the president had said prior to that?
I remember specific cuss words being used by a variety of members.
Okay, these are all adults. Most of them are in their like 60s, and they curse. This is so utterly ridiculous. I was watching, which they're going to play here in just a minute, Cory Booker, which is a whole nother level of stupidity and over-the-top acting, which we're going to discuss as this goes along. But this is such, it's nothing. There's nothing here. This is complete crap. You want to look at a crap hole, look at this location right here, Washington, D.C., in that Congress, and where they do these just absolutely idiotic whether they're questioning Hillary Clinton over something that she did, which they never get to the bottom of, or it's a confirmation hearing, any of these cabinets, any of these series of questions that they have where they're grilling them, it never amounts to anything. Never. And in this case, what they're asking her about, if you have any sense in your mind, you'll understand if the president did say something and allude to the fact that these places in Central and South America are completely out of control. There's nothing, it doesn't matter if what color you are. The fact is they are impoverished countries. They have no education system. The illiteracy rate is sky high. A lot of them are either drug ridden or dealing drugs, or they'll do certain things to come over, or they're being trafficked or smuggled, which is dangerous if they're being smuggled, and it's actually a human rights violation if they're being trafficked. And when he referred to the other countries, he wasn't talking about the race. He was talking about the economic stance of the other countries and how they are educated. They are countries where the GDP is sky high, where people are... There's not a great vast majority of drug dealers or drug users, and none of that's being covered in this. It's all, did he call this place an S-hole or not? That's all they're concentrating on in this.
So she does remember specific cuss words used by a variety of members of Congress, but not specific cuss words used by the President of the United States. So who does this administration think it's fooling at this point? Well, certainly not Senator Cory Booker.
Oh, here we go, folks. Here we go. Listen, this should be Academy Award performance. This guy right here.
Commander-in-Chief, in an Oval Office meeting, referring to people from African countries and Haitians with the most vile and vulgar language.
Now, if he said what they said that he said, nowhere in that statement was it saying that he thought Haitians are worse than anybody from Norway or anywhere else. He's talking about the location. He's talking about the poverty level. He was talking, I mean, look, if we're going to assume that he said what he said, which I don't know if he did or not, but I'm going to have to go on that narrative. What this guy is saying is this whole thing is exactly what this other guy was talking about from MSNBC just a second ago when he said, let me play that again for you.
But that sounds fatalistic.
When he said,
news. That skips the whole issue. The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods, and trick people into thinking it was news.
So the Russians and others do that, but what you're seeing right here is Cory Booker speaks out of this lying mouth right there. You're going to hear lies, falsehoods, and trickery.
Reports that one of
the language festers. When ignorance and bigotry is allied with power, it is a dangerous force in our country. Your silence and your amnesia is complicity.
I'm going to play that one more time for you. This is Academy Award performance.
Does this administration think it's fooling at this point? Well, certainly not Senator Cory Booker.
The Commander-in-Chief, in an Oval Office meeting, referring to people from African countries and Haitians with the most vile and vulgar language. The language festers. When ignorance and bigotry is allied with power, it is a dangerous force in our country.
When ignorance... Oh, I got to play that again.
The language festers. Mm-hmm. When ignorance and bigotry is allied with power, it is a dangerous force in our country.
He's definitely got the ignorance down, Cory Booker. This is, I mean, look, folks, it's just this whole thing that we are seeing going on in politics and in media has become so overt that it's no different than if you go to Broadway and you watch a play and you believe that that is real. It's the same thing that you're watching here. It's somebody says on Twitter right now, it's Marine, over dramatized rhetoric. That's what it is. They should start handing out playbills. You know, if you go to Broadway, I've never actually been to a Broadway show here. I did when I worked for the Little Rock Convention Bureau when they would travel through there. I had to sit through Cats one time when I was working security. Oh, Lord. So you want to talk about a hellhole. So they give out these playbills, and it talks about, it tells you who all the people are in their acting, tells you the story. They should start handing this out for news on a daily basis. The only worse one was Miss Saigon. That was even worse than Cats, I think. I had to sit through these things because I was doing security. But anyway, I digress. This is an Academy Award performance that is complete and utter bullcrap. And there has never been an ounce of a shred of proof or an example that the president is a racist or that he believes these things or that he's saying these things about specific people. They just continuously take things that he says, things that he does, and they completely spin them with no proof, no evidence. They're not showing any video or audio of what he said or the context in what he said, because they want to run with the narrative and lace that with their lies, with their untruths, and with their falsehoods, as this guy Ari said from MSNBC.
Your silence and your amnesia is complicity.
Unfortunately, it's not just the Secretary of Homeland Security. Here are two Republican senators who also were at the meeting.
You did not use that word, George, and I'm telling you, it's a gross misrepresentation.
I didn't hear that word either. I certainly didn't hear what Senator Durbin has said repeatedly.
Okay, to be clear, Senators Perdue and Cotton are, I mean, I don't even know if you can say playing with semantics. It's really an insult to anyone's intelligence. A senior GOP source familiar with the matter says to CNN that instead of hearing the president say, "S-hole," some Republicans, Cotton and Perdue, heard Trump say, "S-house." Okay, so why would two sitting senators and a sitting cabinet secretary cover for the president when so many people know the truth? Well, all we can say is this.
Do they know the truth? So I don't think they do know the truth. I mean, I don't think anybody outside of that room knows the truth. And I think the people inside that room are going to spin. One side's going to protect because of this narrative. The other side's spinning the narrative. You're not going to get the truth. The reality is, Aaron Burnett, you don't know the truth. Nobody that you're speaking to knows the truth. And quite frankly, you're not a journalist, okay? I should have told you that to your face when I talked to you that one day when you stupidly went and interviewed a terrorist brother who is probably in the planning cell himself, and you went and interviewed him in the middle of the biggest zone or area of jihadists outside of the Middle East in Belgium. You went to their living room, you interviewed them there, and didn't even realize the danger that you were in. And I'm supposed to sit here and listen to you tell me what the truth is? Give me a freaking break. Give me a break.
They're not alone in lying, and let's use the word lying for this president.
Yeah. Let's use the word lying, Aaron, because in this snarky little smile or face that you have on there, the reality is you and the rest of the people in this world of just absolutely nefarious and subversive media outlets, you lie on a daily basis. Remember, omitting the truth is a lie. Spinning the truth is a lie. And outwardly making up false allegations is a lie. Saying that something exists when it doesn't exist is a lie. The motivation behind all of these things is the same. And you are guilty of that. And on the other hand, you also back it up with incompetence and outright stupidity that you would go in and sit with. Do you really believe that they wouldn't kill you in a heartbeat if they would have had a chance while you were there in Belgium, if they weren't running for their lives at that point? Hell yeah, they would have. Yeah, they would have. I got to get that face off this computer. So Now do you see? This is one of the reasons why I started this show. A perfect example today. No matter, it's the same headlines on a daily basis, same ridiculous headlines, same lies, same made up truths, same where they're not putting in all the facts. It just goes on and on. It's the same every day. But today we had two really good examples of it. I just can't quit playing and thinking about how incredible of an example it is with this guy Ari from MSNBC. I got to play it one more time when he says this, because it's like a confessional. It's like he is confessing, and it's the perfect example of what I'm saying.
He says there, we don't write the news. That skips the whole issue. The issue is that the Russians and others were able to put out lies, falsehoods, and trick people into thinking it was news. When BuzzFeed reports that one of the most
lies, falsehoods, and tricking people into believing it's news. That's what they do on a daily basis. Lies, falsehoods, trickery. Those are not incompetent maneuvers. Those are competent maneuvers. Those are planned out, and they do that because they are trying to spin the narrative, either to get advertising, to back their candidate, or overall to subvert this country. And they have literally subverted half of this country to where they'll say something and half of the country just believes it. They just take it as the gospel and they believe it. Let's get him off of there. Now, let's go to the A block. I didn't even do a block yet. Let's just let's just do the A block just to do it. I'm going to talk for a second about Homeland Security and their need to start, which I've been saying. Anybody who watches this show knows that I've been saying that they need to start arresting these sanctuary city mayors and the governors of the states that are allowing this to happen. Let's go to the A block. So, this is from the Washington Times today. It says that Homeland Security Kristen Nelson confirmed Tuesday that her department has asked federal prosecutors to see if they can lodge criminal charges against sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with the federal deportation efforts. The Department of Justice is reviewing what avenue may be available, Ms. Nelson told the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, look, I'm just glad it's being said. I don't really have hope that they're going to do this. I would love to see some of the governors of these states where the sanctuary cities are popping up. In Texas, I'd love to see the governor in Texas go after the mayors of and the city council people and the state senators or representatives that are backing these people as obstructing justice, and go after them in the state. It's probably not going to happen in the federal government. Probably not. But the states could do it. And I would love to see the governors go after these different mayors and so on and so forth, because the reality is, if any of you watching housed illegals in your home and one of them went out and raped somebody, first off, if you're housing illegals in your home knowingly and hiding them from the government, that's a felony. Now, they may have come over here for the first time and they're going to get a misdemeanor. They'll get deported, but they're going to come back. You, however, will get charged with a felony, okay? And you will go to prison for that, for obstruction of justice. When it comes to the fact that if you had illegals and you were hiding them and one of them went out and committed a murder or a rape, as long as they don't live in San Francisco, where evidently it's not killing somebody in cold blood is not murder anymore if you're illegal, anywhere else, I guess you would go to jail. You would go to jail for being accessory to a murder, or harboring a drug dealer, or being part of a criminal enterprise, for instance, if they could prove that people in that house were working together to commit two or more crimes in the furtherance of a criminal enterprise. That's a RICO statute. If you were, for instance, living in Chicago and you were allowing illegals to come, prostitutes to come across state lines from New York, to Chicago, and they would go back and they would come back, and they would go to New York and they would come back, or they were rotating girls. Every woman that goes across the state line from New York that's illegal for prostitution purposes, or even if they're not illegal, but they go across state lines, but let's say in this case they go to this home, you could be charged with, every time they cross that border, a Mann Act, and that's 10 to 20 years in prison. And that's a federal charge, which means whatever you get, you're not going to get parole. So if this went on for a while and you own the house, guess what? You're going to go to jail for a long time, because every count of Mann Act is going to be billed to you. So why is it that these sanctuary city mayors and the governors of these states, the city council members that are working with them to make this stuff happen, when these women are going back and forth across state lines for prostitution, when they're dealing drugs, why aren't these people being charged not only with harboring illegals, not only with obstructing justice, but also being charged as part of a criminal enterprise under the RICO statute? And some of those crimes could include things like the Mann Act, where they're bringing women across lines for prostitution. Where is our Attorney General? I saw him on Fox News tonight. Well, look, I was an FBI agent for 8 years. You know, I don't have the most illustrious career in the Bureau or anywhere else for that matter. I did those things. I suffered and paid the price and did those jobs for a while. And but how is it that I can come up with this, and somebody who's been in Senate for 30 years and then transferred over to be the Attorney General isn't doing anything? Jeff Sessions is the most worthless Attorney General we have ever had. I'm not saying he's the most criminal. I don't know that, but he's the most worthless one we've ever had. So he was on Tucker Carlson earlier, and now I guess he's gone back into his hole. So I don't understand why these people can't start seeing this. States attorneys general, governors that are not a part of the leftist Democratic Party. The president needs to get an attorney general in there that has some teeth and fire these attorneys, the Muellers, the Comeys, the Rod Rosenstein, all these different people. I wish he could fire this FBI director and get rid of him. You can't, Christopher Wray, you can't trust any of these people. They've all been DOJ attorneys. Get rid of them. And start putting some people in there that don't have loyalty to a political party. They have loyalty to the American people and to justice. How about having some people in the DOJ that have loyalty to justice? How about that? That, Mr. President, that's the way you should be making your decisions. Are they loyal to justice in the DOJ? Are they loyal to justice in the FBI? In the State Department, are they loyal to the American people, that they're going to set up standard operating procedures across the board? And Mr. President, if you really want to stop this immigration issue where the judges are controlling stuff, forget about all these executive orders. Forget about about Congress. Use your power and as the commander-in-chief of the military and of the executive branch of government, and come up with policies. Forget about executive orders. Come up with real policies, like the State Department, who's in the Department of Immigration, where they come up with policies and force them to do this, where they have to have screening across the board for everybody that is exactly the same. And it should be stringent. If you can't prove where you're from, if you can't prove all the phones that you've had, if you can't prove your relatives and where they've been, if you can't prove these things, if you can't prove that you don't have a police record, whether that they can't even print out a name because you live in a third world country, you don't come here. You don't have to go around saying that places are a hellhole or an S-hole. You don't have to go around saying, why don't we have more immigrants from there? Why don't we have immigrants that are more capable or educated? Why don't we get rid of this thing? Why don't we get rid of that thing? Listen, scrap it all and make a policy that you don't come to this country unless I don't listen, whatever this idiot is on Twitter, third world is an outdated term. I don't care what term you use. I use third world, whatever term you want to use. The reality is, they are broken countries. They are failed countries. They are countries where crime runs rampant, where murder runs rampant, where kidnapping and basically any other crime you can come up with runs rampant, where the governments allow either rich or you are extremely poor. They've destroyed the middle classes, where poverty is so entrenched that people that live there will never get out of poverty, ever. They probably won't have an education. Some of them may not even have toilet paper like in Venezuela for years and years. And you think that they're going to be able to have their police records available when you want to do a background check on them, that they're going to have all their addresses? Are you going to go down and do a background check on somebody? It's not just whether or not they can produce it. Is it safe for us to go down and do a background check? Are you going to rely on their government and their law enforcement to tell you, yes, this person lived at 6653 down in the XXX barrio for 17 years of their life? No, you're not. Look, this is how stupid these trolls are on Twitter. No toilet paper. Go to Venezuela. You cannot get toilet paper if you're poor in Venezuela. You can't get toothpaste. You can't get any amenities. But that is no reason to make sure that they come to this country. If anything, I'd rather see us invading these countries and knocking these governments, these corrupt governments out of listen, if the UN wants to do something, let them go around this world getting rid of these different absolute corrupt and communist governments that literally kill millions and millions and millions of people every century because they just don't care about them. That's the reality. And we get into semantics, and I know this person's trolling me on Twitter, so I'm not going to pay any attention to it. But it's interesting because even people that they wouldn't consider themselves trolls. They're just narcissistic egomaniacs, and they're snobs because they think they have an education to this level or whatever. They think, we don't use the term third world country anymore. Whatever you want to call it. I call it a third world country because the fact is, it is not it's not a modern country. You cannot go there and live safely. You can, as an American. I know somebody who lives in Haiti. They run a farm down there. They are an American citizen. They run a farm down there. They have literally killed multiple people that have come onto their property in an attempt to steal things or like kidnap people. And they killed them. And you know what happens in Haiti when you do that? Nothing. Nothing happens. It's like the Wild West. And you want to go over semantics on whether or not it's called third world or not. Listen, the reality is the world is just like Vegas, okay? If I go to Rome and I look at the ruins in Rome and something looks like marble, you probably shouldn't punch that because the reality is it's marble. All right. But if you go to Vegas and you look at something that looks like marble and you punch that, your hand's liable to go straight through it because it's probably drywall. It's been painted to look like marble. The reality is, or it's just regular rock. Okay. That's the way the world is. The reality that we live under, this veil of where we think that things can be fixed or they can't be fixed or that it's this way. The reality is, everything is just about that thin before we get to the point where it completely crumbles and falls apart. If you go down to Central South America, there are numerous failed governments. It's not the people's fault. It's not a racial thing. It's a crime and government and drug thing. If you go to the Middle East, and you see the reality of how people live over there, and you think you're going to put in their, democracy or whatever, you're fooling yourself because the reality is over there is that it is, most of those countries, at least the basis or the foundation of them, are fundamental Islamic countries. They don't care about democracy. They're all about domination. They're all about conquering, and they would conquer each other until the day is done if they could. whoever's strongest is going to rule over there. And your freedoms don't mean anything. If you're a woman and you live in one of those countries, you're worth less than a goat in certain circumstances. That is the reality. That is the reality over there. And you go around to these different countries in the world, and the reality is that if you don't have a system, you have to protect the country first, our country. If you don't have a system set up that allows certain people to come here that can prove where they're from, that they don't have ties to organized crime, that they don't have ties to drug sales, that they don't have ties to terrorism, that they've lived in this house, that they don't have a police record, that they have an education to a certain level, that they want to come here for the right reasons. If they can't prove that, they don't come here. And then if you want to help those countries out, and then we can determine where our money goes. Instead of giving our money to Israel, why we're giving money to Israel, I don't know. If we want to help them out to defend themselves, I get that. Why not just build a bunch of bases over there and put our troops over there so they at least get training and practice? I would rather do that than give Israel a bunch of money. If we were looking at things in a realistic way of policy of immigration, you don't come here unless you meet these standards. We need to change the standard operating procedures in the Department in immigration across the board, in the State Department, in the DOJ, in the FBI. What is effective? Does it stand for justice? Does it protect the American people? And is it effective? If those things are not, get rid of them. Start over. And if you get people in these leftists in government that cannot let go of the fact that they're globalists, and they just think there shouldn't be any borders. They don't think that it's fair. They don't think that it's this. They think that you're a racist. Get rid of them. Fire them. They're cancers. And what do? They metastasize, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's been going on since the end of Reagan's era, really, to tell you the truth. I think a lot of them came in from Carter, and Reagan didn't get rid of them, and they stayed in, and they grew through Bush 41. Clinton, they just piled them on. Bush 43 didn't get rid of them. Obama came in. Those people are now senior level people, and they just entrenched and recruited and entrenched and recruited. And now what do you have? A destroyed. Our government is not failed. It is literally a subverted government. And so none of these things are effective. And when you look at the lies that are on the news, when you look at the lies that are coming out of Washington, D.C., as an American citizen, you can't trust anything that these people are saying. It's that ridiculous. And I hope that this show gives you a smidgen of insight and awareness that you can actually go and watch this stuff now and say, this is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. They're saying it's like a confessional. They're saying exactly what they do on a daily basis. I hope that you're seeing this and that you see that there are, look, again, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. There are effective solutions out there. There are realistic ways that we can go about fixing these things. But that's not what Washington, D.C. is about. That's not what the news is about. It's not about the fix. It's about the party. It's not about the solution. It's about furthering the problem so that they can continue to be relevant. And the only way that we're going to get past this, I say on a daily basis, that's why I keep talking about the CQRF, is if the people come together and the people become the most powerful political lobby that there is. Right now, the people are not. Every time you get people together, they have to be something. They're either the Tea Party, the Libertarian Party, they're conservative, they're liberal. Forget that. Forget about this liberal conservative stuff. Just become an effective thinker and stand with people that are effective thinkers. And if we get together and if we start to unite, you'll start to see that when you're looking at the fixes, when you're looking at the solutions, there is only a few ways that you can do it. And any variation of that is simply a spin. It's a narrative. It's a prolonging of the problem. That's it. That's all of it. There's nothing more. Our taxes, easily fixed. The problem's easily fixed. Immigration, easily fixed. Extremist groups in this country, easily fixed. Criminal enterprises, the war on drugs, easily fixed. The war on terror, easily fixed. We either, in this country, don't want to face the solution in the case of the war on terror, where you can go. So this guy says, how can you be an effective thinker if you don't know how to identify and combat your own biases? Okay, I'm going to play with this troll for a second. I will give you, everybody stop commenting on Twitter, except for this person, and he knows who he is. I'm assuming it's a he. It's probably a robot. You tell me what my biases are. We'll wait right here for you to tell me what my biases are. You're lostening. I think it says Warren. I can't hardly read it on there. I'm waiting. List what my biases are. We'll wait for a second. This ought to be interesting. Tell me what my biases are. You think immigrants are criminals. Okay, hold on. Don't type anything else. Let me answer that one. Immigrants are not criminals. Immigrants come here legally. Illegal immigrants are criminals. You come across the border once. This is the law. You come across the border once without going through the official avenues, then it's a misdemeanor. If you're deported and then you come back again, you're now a felon. I think that should be changed. I think it should be a felony to cross across our borders. So, yes, I do believe that illegal aliens that come over here outside of the legal avenue, yes, you are a criminal. Now, I have a friend who came over from Denmark. She worked for IBM. She came through the legal way. She's not a criminal. But I'll go one even further for you here. And I know some people may not agree with me on this. I have several friends that have come over here when they were young children. They are considered the dreamers. One of my good friends was 15 when she came here from South America. Her parents got her basically smuggled into the United States. She's now in her 40s, very successful. I think she may have gotten her American citizenship along the way. I don't know. I've never questioned her about that. But let's say that she didn't. I think that what she has done and the work that she has done and the person that she has been since she's been here, she should be rewarded with citizenship. I believe that. I believe it, or at least a contract with America to become an American citizen. I believe that. I don't see anything wrong with somebody who's in their 40s that came over. And I know people are all like, oh, that guy, he's a dreamer. He's 39 years old. What was the age when the guy came over? And then he's been here for 25 years. And you're going to tell me that that person's not an American? That's the thing that I don't like. All right. I don't like when we get in this back and forth about the reality. And one thing we do ignore is reality. So I think if we sat down and we looked at who these people are and why they came across and how old they were and what they've done from that point to this point, says a lot about who they are, says a lot about the kind of an American that they are. And I don't have a problem with examining that. But I am not biased against somebody coming here legally, and I'm not biased against somebody who came over here as a child and has been here for 25, 30 years. But I am extremely biased about people who are adults who come across the border illegally, who are trafficked, people who are smuggled, and people who are trafficked are victims, and they should be taken in, and I don't think they should be given status in this country. I think their parents should be found wherever they're gone. They should be given the support of our government, and then they should go home. That's what I believe. Now, what's your next question there? What's my next bias there? Let's see what this guy has to say. We'll wait. Since you assume, just like we're talking about on the whole show today, how people in the media and all in social media, they assume things about people and they just blatantly say it and they repeat it. Let's hear your next one. Where's my bias? What is it? We're waiting. This is my waiting music here. He must have melted. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? What's my bias? That's the war drums. You see, there you go. Nothing. He's nowhere. So there you go, folks. That's the reality of this. People cannot, they don't come on here and expect you to give an argument back about the reality of something. And so they lob accusations out because that's the way the media does it, right? So they think that's just the way the world works. That's not the way the world works. The world doesn't work that way. Yeah, maybe he isn't illegal. Could be. All right. He's gone. All right. So anyway, we'll move on. So let's look. When we look at these things, and this will be the end of this. When we look at the solutions and the effective ways to fix things in this country, the reality is it's very simple for us to see most of these things. You want to fix the problem with the war on terror? You got to do something like I came up with a 4-stage strategic war plan. First thing you got to do, name the enemy. Second thing you got to do, you have to have an actual picture of how the enemy, who the enemy is and how they operate. Once you develop that picture, you're going to know that the Middle East, in the case of the war on terror, that the Middle East is the heart of the problem. But the problem has metastasized, so it's in the bloodstream, and it's gone underground, it's gone online, it's gone into cyberspace, it's gone all over this world in ways that we never would have dealt with 30, 40 years ago. Right? So we have to look at it that way. So you have to identify the person, you have to identify the enemy, you have to identify their operating environment, how they operate, how they've metastasized. You have to then work as a coalition. I know this doesn't usually work that well, but you have to try to get at least people to the table to talk about the problem around the world and say, you need to fix this. You need to fix this. We're willing to help here. We're willing to help there. And then you do this. You go after them in the Middle East. You push them back to manageable numbers. You don't just say we're going to fight ISIS or we're going to fight Al-Qaeda or we're going to fight Boko Haram. You fight fundamental Islam. You admit that's the problem and you go after them with a vengeance. And you don't wait for them to pop up. You go after them. And you do it not because of racism, not because of a hatred of Islam. You go there because this is a problem in the world. You've identified that this is where jihadists are coming from, and you go after it and you attempt to eliminate it. You'll never be able to eliminate it. So you go after them and you push them back to manageable numbers. At the same time, you go online. You do in a coordinated fashion. You shut down their ability to recruit and maneuver online. You work not just with Twitter, against Twitter if they don't do it. Same thing with Facebook and everybody else, where you get them to shut this stuff down. Other countries, they don't get our money. If they don't work with us, they don't get our money. They'll work with us. Then at the same time, you're working online to shut this stuff down and the recruitment all around the world. You try to, as best you can, get your allies to secure their borders. If you have to help them secure their borders, we help them secure their borders. You can't make them do that. But what we do then is we come back and we secure our borders. We change our immigration. We make things more effective, as we've talked about throughout this show, to the point where we know exactly who is coming here and who is not. Now, is that the end-all be-all solution? No. But you see, it's not difficult to come up with a solution, and all the things that I just pointed out are not being done effectively. So you have to come up with a strategic plan. You have to come up with a plan that hits the enemy in different areas. You have to come up with a plan to secure your nation and convince other allies that they need to secure their facility, their nations as well. And then you make it happen. We don't do that. We don't have strategic plans. We don't even start by naming the enemy. We call it radical Islam when it's not. It's fundamental Islam. And we just never fully initiate a strategic plan. It never gets done. That's why the war on drugs has failed. That's why the war on terror has failed. That's why the war on human trafficking has failed. That's why the war on pedophilia and child trafficking, sex trafficking has failed. That's why the war on morals and ethics and the family in this country has failed. All of it fails because we don't have a strategic plan, because by and large, politicians don't want it. If they fix it, they think they're going to become irrelevant, and the media doesn't want it because in a lot of ways it goes against their globalistic, communistic mindset of the way things should be in this world. Somebody says we need to get rid of the establishment politicians first. If not, it won't work. I agree. I could sit here and talk all day, and we could all come up with the best ideas. But if you don't get rid of these politicians, it's not going to work. And therein lies the problem. You're not going to get rid of these politicians unless the citizenry in this country comes together. The power in this country does not lie in the president or Congress or the Senate or the Supreme Court or your state and local and federal judges or state and local governments or your police department. The power doesn't lie there. The power lies in the people. But the problem is the people have handed over their power to these politicians, and the politicians appoint judges. And we vote based on two private companies, the Democratic and the Republican parties, and we don't seek out effective solutions. We just sit back and we're told this politician is the one that has the answer, and we vote yay or nay, and then we go on about our daily lives. And that's why we're in the predicament that we're in over and over and over. It's called learned helplessness, folks. You've been taught learned helplessness, and you're comfortable with it. And the only way to defeat it is to start standing together. And that's what we should do. Now, I've gone on and rambled a little bit. That's okay. I got on a roll. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to go work out a little bit, take Rico for a walk, and get myself some Corona Light and have a drink tonight. And I'm working on my second book right now, which is going to be, it's going to go along with this best-selling book right here, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. If you have not got this book, get it. If you've gotten it, order another one and give it to somebody else. Send it to the president. Send it to your congressman, your senator. Send it to your preacher. Get a bunch of them. Give them to the congregation at your church. Give it to your sheriff, your chief of police. You know a cop, give it to them. Tell them to read it. And if they say, well, I don't read because I'm always in the car, get them the book on tape. If you're a trucker, get the book on tape. And also get the book because it's going to help you to have both of them. I'm working on something that's going to go with this now. And it's going to help you develop this target package in your life so you can lay it out. And it's going to be something that you're going to want. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's finally in stock everywhere. You can go in the stores and get it. It's a bestseller in one category right now. I don't have a regular show on TV, so it goes up and down. It was number 15 there for a while, debuted at number 11 on Amazon's bestseller list. I have a feeling after Will Cow's show, it'll be 600 or higher after Thursday. We shall see. Word of mouth is the best way to get this thing going. And, of course, don't forget the GoFundMe page, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Any money that you give, it continues to help this show, and eventually I'm going to get this show back out on the road. Let's go to the Truth Zone. So last night after the show, somebody came on. I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't even see the name. one of the listeners came on and said that I should take that whole Truth Zone and put it out there as a video. And that's what I chopped off the first part of the Truth Zone, but I condensed it and I tweeted it. I put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook. If you see it, it should be right after this show, or it was the last post before this show. Go and share that, retweet it. I think people need to see that because they need to realize what Martin Luther King stood for if they don't know, and they need to start looking at people through as him as the standard, his actions as the standard. And if people don't meet that standard, then you know they're up to no good. They have nefarious intentions, they're criminal, or they're just playing the narrative. There are very few people in this world that come along that are able to make, a lot of people try, but there's very few people that are able to make the changes that Martin Luther King Jr. made. And it's sad to say that a lot of the influence that he had was reversed by the very people he was trying to free from oppression. They got caught up in the Democratic Party. Media is now on that bandwagon. Activists are on that bandwagon. And the reality is, communist subversive, utilize this division to bring this country down. And I would not be surprised if we looked closely at the assassination of Martin Luther King, if somewhere along the line, communist subversives were involved with some part of that, because he stood for exactly opposite of what subversives want. He stood to empower this country. And leaders like him stand to empower whatever country they're a part of. If you look in the Bible, David was the empowerer. Jesus himself empowered people. If you look at the reality of those that make the biggest difference in history, they are people that don't stand for themselves. They're individuals that push the people to be better, that push the people to be united, that push the people to be empowered. If that is not what your politicians are doing, get rid of them. If that's not what people in the media that you watch on a daily basis are doing, get people together and complain about them. Remember, advertisers are the way to get to the media. Go after the advertisers. They're the ones. You want somebody on media? Go to the advertisers and tell them. You want somebody off of media? Go to the advertisers and tell them. But ultimately, if you don't stand together, if 5 people tell an advertiser you need to get rid of that person, not going to happen. If you try to have a revolution in this country so we can go back to the way we were, to a constitutional country, and you do it with 5 people, it's not going to happen. But if you stand 10,000 strong, you've got some power. If you have 100,000, if you have 1 million, if you have 10 million, if you have 60 million people, the strength that you will wield, well, no nuclear bomb is going to even be able to stand close to that. That is the true power. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My old buddy Rico is over there asleep. As always, I'll see you tomorrow. This is The Experts. I'm Jonathan Gillum, and as always, whenever you see this face, whenever you hear this voice, the truth has arrived. Right there, you see it on the screen. GoFund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Support the CQRF by supporting this show, keeping the truth going, standing with each other. You see somebody on Twitter that has a problem with a troll, stand with them. Don't be afraid to reach out to people on direct message and coordinate the attack. Do it. That's what they do to you. Stand against this social media banning. Stand against these social media companies that are doing the same thing they stood against the government for doing. Going into your private direct messages, looking at your private messages, invading your privacy, manipulating your information, the same exact thing activists and all these people fought against the government for. They do the same thing. Stand against them. Donate to this show. Unite. Spread the word. And we'll continue to empower the people. And if you haven't ordered the book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, Sean Hannity wrote the foreword. Trust me, you will not regret getting this book.
Peace out.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.